Hi guys, Jackie from Famished Farm, and we're back for this week's pantry challenge where we have used 3 new recipes, so reducing the recipe stash and hoping to add some of these to our rotation. And we also use some flaxseed and nutritional yeast this week, and that's things in our pantry that we wanted to reduce so they don't go bad. The other thing that we did is we used some of the frozen orange juice, which is now all gone. We made some of that cranberry orange bread, and so slowly but surely working through the stash. So what did we have this week? Burgers, ground turkey chili. We had kind of a cool night, and another cool night that we did soup and sandwich. We're having our leftover rice-a-roni, which I will use that nutritional yeast chicken bouillon to make it like it should have been made. We do a chicken and vinegar, one of the new recipes, a salmon ceviche tacos, and grilled spice rubbed whole chicken. Now, can I tell you, we have really good this week and really bad. So here's what went wrong. The salmon ceviche was not going to work for Rod. So I ended up stir frying it. It just didn't cook enough. I like raw fish. I like sashimi and those kind of things, but Rod does not. So he was not going to like that. However, the chicken and vinegar that we made was fabulous, and the grilled spice rubbed whole chicken, that was so easy and it was so good, and we've got plenty of leftovers coming up. So that's what we did this week. Stay tuned. I'll show you how we did it, and I'll tell you where I went wrong and maybe you won't. Thanks for watching. First up was a really good recipe from Eating Well magazine, April 2021 issue for chicken and vinegar, and this is a recipe is available online. It starts with 1.25 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I happen to have chicken quarters in the freezer, so I had taken them out to thaw. I'm going to cut those into pieces and then season with a little salt and a little pepper. And then I'm going to grab a bowl with 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Sorry, you can't really see this, but we're just going to dredge these chicken pieces in the flour. And then over on the stove top, we've got 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of oil. And we are going to heat this up until it becomes foamy. And then we're going to take our chicken pieces that have been dredged in flour. We're going to brown those on both sides. It should take 9 to 12 minutes. I think I did 5 or 6 minutes on each side and got a nice browning. And I did it in 2 batches because my skillet is not that big. And then here's my second set of chicken going on. And same process. Set your timer for 5 or 6 minutes and brown away. This looks like it's burned. It's not. It's just beautiful color. That's beautiful flavor. And then I need some room in my skillet, so I'm going to set these pieces off the heat onto a separate plate. And then I'm adding dry garlic and dried onion. The recipe calls for garlic cloves and a shallot. I do not have shallots, and I just didn't feel like mincing garlic. Then the recipe wants you to add a tablespoon of tomato paste. I don't have any right now, so I'm just using 2 tablespoons of my tomato powder. And that just had a big clump in it, so I'm breaking up the clump and then grabbing my second tablespoon. And then it does call for just a pinch of salt also. And you're just going to cook this on the stovetop for about a minute. And actually it did call for a little break in time between the two, but I didn't do that. But once you've come this far, then it calls for a tomato diced. I'm just going to use my canned crushed tomatoes and a little bit of honey. I use raw. You use whatever you've got. And the recipe calls for red wine vinegar. I have rice wine vinegar. You could probably use apple cider with no problem too. And then we're just going to give this a little stir. If there's any font at the bottom of the pan, be sure to get all those little brown bits up. And we're just going to let this, oh, don't forget your broth. The recipe does call for chicken broth. I think I had beef broth in the fridge, so that's what I used. And we're just going to stir this in and then bring everything to a simmer. Now I'm kind of worried about something called chicken and vinegar when my husband does not like vinegar, but I taste this and it's really good. The vinegar is not pronounced. I think it's just going to be perfect. Once this starts simmering, you're going to add your chicken back in and then cover and cook for 15 minutes. And it does say to flip the chicken occasionally, so I will do that a couple times throughout this cooking process. This is a tight fit. Use a bigger skillet if you've got one. This is what I've got, so I use my cast iron. And here's my makeshift lid for my cast iron, just one of my Corelle dinner plates. It works just fine. So this, I think I end up flipping it 3 times or so. And as you're flipping it, the sauce is going to slightly thicken over a 20 to 25 minute period. I may have gone a little longer than that, but here where it's nice and bubbly, we're going to finish this off with a little bit of, it calls for fresh parsley and fresh tarragon. I have neither one. And actually I can't find my tarragon, so I end up using sage. And again, this turned out really delicious. Is it a fair review when I change so many things? Well, I'm like everybody else. Sometimes I've got everything I need and sometimes I don't. This particular day I didn't. But the recipe is fantastic. I think as written it will be doubly fantastic. It said it recommended serving it with mashed potatoes, and to be honest with you, I can't remember now what we served it with, but regardless, Rod loved it, I loved it. It was very good. This was my first fail in a long time, and it's out of the same Eating Well magazine, April 2021 issue. And it's a salmon ceviche with vinegar, apple, and fennel. This recipe also is available online. Use the best quality salmon that you can find. This is basically using vinegar to cook or denature the protein, which in this case is salmon. And I should have known right off the bat this was going to be way too vinegar forward, but I was going to give it a try. So in the bowl I had diced a delicious, actually I used a gala apple. I don't peel it, just finely dice it. I didn't have diced fennel, so I used celery. And then I'm adding the pound of salmon that I've cut up into like 1/2-inch pieces. Then you're going to add, oh, and I did have some fennel seeds, so I went ahead and added those. This is my first mistake. I only added 1/4 cup of vinegar. It should have been 3/4. You know what? I'm reading this right now, and it does call for 1/4 cup of vinegar. So I've screwed this recipe up every which way you can. But regardless, after several hours in the fridge, with these additional spices, it still was not cooked enough. So I used, instead of a shallot, some onion powder. There I just added the dill. Again, I just used powdered or dried dill. I didn't have fresh. And then some parsley dried. Salt it and pepper it good, and then mix it up. And I'm gonna get it really nice and mixed up, and that vinegar is going to basically cook the salmon. So it says you can put it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes and up to 3 hours. At about the 2-hour mark, I pull it out and I know that this is not going to work. So we make some very liberal changes with this recipe. When Rod and I were first married, we had a shrimp ceviche at a friend's house, and we loved it. So that was the reason that this recipe intrigued me. We're salmon eaters. I thought this would just work for us. But with my big fail in reading the recipe as 3/4 cup vinegar, that doomed it. But even as written, the 1/4 cup of vinegar, after 2 hours in the fridge, the salmon was still raw. So this was not, it was a combination of my failing and the recipe's failing. So I can't recommend it, but we did save it by stir frying the salmon. I just poured off the extra vinegar and stir fried it in a wok. And our plan from the beginning was to have fish tacos. So this still worked. In fact, I had 2 tacos, Rod had 3. It just is not a recipe that I would ever make again. And it was a fail. But our big win of the week was our My Recipes grilled spice rubbed whole chicken. And this was fantastic. It was easy. We took a 4 or 4.5 pound whole chicken, and I forgot to take it out of the freezer. So the morning and some of the afternoon, this was basically sitting in water. That's why there's so much liquid on this cookie sheet. But I removed all the gizzards and stuff. And then our rub is going to be 1.5 teaspoons of brown sugar and 1 1/4 teaspoons ground cumin, and then a little salt and a little pepper, and then a little bit of our paprika. And I used half of what the recipe called for on the thyme, and some chili powder. And this is just going to be mixed together. And I took a little while and got all the little chunks of brown sugar mixed in good. And then we're going to simply cut this chicken so it will lay flat on the grill. But first I do my trick of putting all the chickeny parts in a bag inside a grocery bag, and that goes into the freezer to wait for our garbage to go out. So that's what I'm doing here, is getting that ready, getting the last few bits of gizzard and innards out of this chicken. And check both ends. I do end up cutting off that neck bone that was sticking out too. But that's basically where we're starting our cut. And it's very easy. The directions just say cut the chicken in half lengthwise along the backbone. Cut just through the one side of the chicken, and then you're going to open it up. And I'm going to show this real time so you can see that it really was quite easy. And then once we open that up, you're going to flip her over. And then to get it to lay flat, you're going to need to break the breastbone. Oh, but first, what are we doing here? Oh, yes. First, we're going to get our rub in here. So you're going to And actually, you don't have to be this gentle because the skin is pretty forgiving. So now I don't have fingernails, that may help, but you're just going to reach down, get both breasts free, and then get into as far down into that leg as you can. I probably could have gone a little further. And you're going to do that on both sides. So you want to free up the skin so you can then shove your rub down in that area from the leg back up to the breast on both sides. And you could just kind of hold this chicken up and pour that in there. I did do kind of a more measured approach. I think next time I would just stand it up and take that bowl like I do the last little bit, just shove it in there and then use your fingers to massage it into the skin or into the flesh underneath the skin all the way down to the leg. So pretty easy peasy. And this was very flavorful. You could definitely tell. I could actually taste the thyme. Wasn't too much, it was fine. But this was very good. So here, I would do it like that from the beginning. And this is gonna leave everything a mess, which of course, anytime you're dealing with raw chicken, you're gonna make sure you wash your hands a million times. Every time you step away, wash your hands. But that is my first attempt at getting the rub underneath there, and I think it worked out pretty good. So wash your hands. Now, still showing you this actual thyme. This is where I break the breastbone so the chicken will lay flat on the grill. And that was very easy, just applying pressure like you're doing CPR to your chicken. And again, I'm going to have to wash my hands because I need to grab something out of a cupboard that I forgot to grab. We've decided to use this grill pan. It is non-stick, but I am going to give it a nice coating with some cooking spray, and then simply put your chicken on your pan, or it can go directly on the grill too. Now the recipe did not say to break the breastbone, but it just helps it lay flat, so do that. And then basically I read the recipe at this point and it does say that you're going to start grilling breast side down, so I'm going to flip it over, and now it's basically ready. Whenever Rod's got the grill ready, which, oh look, he's got the grill ready. So we do take a few minutes here to discuss what's going to go on, because this is unlike any grilling we've ever done before. You're going to grill for 7 minutes on the breast side down with the heat on medium high on one side of the grill. And then the other side of the grill is going to be turned off. So if you have a grill like a pellet grill where it's only one chamber, this method is not going to work for you. But a standard 2-burner gas grill, one side on and one side off. And you want your chicken for the first 7 minutes with the breast side down on the side where the heat is flaming. So we have some discussion about what the plan is for the rest of the cooking time, and make sure we're on the same page. But we do both set a timer to come back in 7 minutes and check it out. So here's our part 1. And then here we are 7 minutes later. Now look at the color on this as Rod flips this. Isn't that beautiful? So now it is the bone side or the inside down. And we're gonna, same thing, keep it over on the side where the heat is on. So we've got flames on that side that the chicken's on. We're gonna shut the cover and cook it another 7 minutes. And now 14 minutes has elapsed, cooking time 7 minutes on each side. And now the plan is just to move the tray over to the side of the grill where there is no heat. But once we close this grill cover, there will be indirect heat. So Rod is trying to move the chicken and the little grill thing over to the side without heat, and then simply shut the door. And of course I have to give a few more directions, which is ridiculous. He's the guy that grills all the time. I don't know why I think I know what I'm doing. But anyway, shut that cover and then set a timer for 45 minutes. Now, we have this probe that we can use. It's a battery operated meat thermometer, and this is the first time we've used it this season, and every time we have to relearn how to use it. So that's what we're doing here. Is it's been 45 minutes. We want to check the temperature, the internal temperature of the chicken, and it should read 165 degrees. But it takes us a few minutes to figure out why the temperature is not registering, and Rod figures out we don't have everything turned on that we need to. Oh, yep, don't forget, turn that on. So once we get that set, then it's simple. Oh, there it is, that one. Turn that on. Now, just figure out how to put this in the little holder, which I do eventually figure that out. So this is taking, 5 minutes to take the temperature. But once we get it, it registers, I think it was 145. So we have 20 degrees more to go. And you want to stick this like in the thick part of the breast. So we decided to come back in 10 minutes and check it again. And we're up to 156. And we give it another 8 minutes. We're up to 163. And then we just kind of hang out until it gets up to 165. Now, isn't that beautiful? This, again, it was delicious. I kind of hacked it up into smaller serving size pieces. And we decided, because it was such a beautiful day out and it was first day of spring, we made potato salad to go along with this. And there was plentiful leftovers for another meal. I just shredded the chicken off the bone. So this was fantastic. Even those little wings were not overcooked. Perfect. Perfect and delicious. 2 thumbs up. Great recipe from My Recipes. Eating Well's chicken in vinegar was very good. This will definitely go into our rotation. And I didn't show you, I don't think in the video, but I did add a couple tablespoons of flax seeds to the sauce. It did help thicken it up a little. But this was so good. Now, I did make a ton of substitutions. Chicken quarters instead of boneless, skinless thighs. I did have actually real garlic. I just chose not to use it. I used powdered onion instead of shallots. I didn't have tomato paste. I used tomato powder. I didn't have a large tomato, so I used half a can of crushed home canned tomatoes. I didn't use rice wine vinegar. I did use rice wine vinegar, not red wine vinegar. And I used beef broth instead of chicken broth. And I didn't have fresh tarragon. I used dried sage. But having said that, I think even if you make it as the recipe is written, you will be thrilled. And pretty easy dish other than the searing of the meat, which is never my favorite thing. But honestly, this was really good. In the same Eating Well magazine, on the next page actually, We had a salmon ceviche with vinegar, apple, and fennel, and this was a fail. I hate to say that, but we like ceviche shrimp anyway, and this should have been something that was great in our fish tacos, but as written, after 2 hours in the refrigerator, the salmon had absolutely no opacity to it. It was still raw. And the other thing, I wonder now, this calls for apple cider vinegar. I wonder if because I used raw cider vinegar, if that had any reason to do with it. But anyway, just not our favorite recipe, and no, we will not be making this again. I am so thrilled to, number one, to have actually spatchcocked a chicken and then to have grilled it. And I think I could actually grill this myself. Usually my husband takes over the grilling duties because he has patience where I have none. In this case, you just set a timer or set your meat probe to whatever temperature you want it at, and when it beeps, it's done. It was easy to prepare. It was even easier to cook, and it was absolutely delicious. And it basically made 2 dinners for us. We've got the chicken that was pulled off the bone in the freezer for another night. Delicious. 2 big thumbs up.